Hi, I'm Andy Biggs, Chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Thank you for joining us today. Today I have some great members from the House Freedom Caucus. I have Mary Miller from Illinois and Bob Good from Virginia. We're going to talk a little bit about one of the big issues of our day, which is the indoctrination or the critical race theory that's taking place as part of curriculums throughout school districts all over the country. And the House Freedom Caucus has taken an official position that we will not support any spending package that continues to fund critical race theory. And so that's an important thing to know. Both Congresswoman Miller and Congressman Good sit on the House Labor and Education Committee. Yes. And so they bring their expertise from that committee as well as their life experience. And I'm delighted to have them here with us today. Let's just talk briefly about what CRT is getting at. This is training. Basically, we'll probably expand on this a little bit, but it talks about and tries to indoctrinate our children that America is fundamentally a racist country. It's a neo-Marxian ideology, critical theory dealt with. Okay, I don't want to get in the weeds. Have a propensity to get in the weeds on this topic, but critical theory was derivative of Hegelian Marxian thought, and then in the early 70s they engendered or infused it with race because they were having trouble squaring it with a lack of revolution for Marxian theory. Anyways, so what brings this to the fore today is one of the candidates for Virginia's governor's race said that parents really shouldn't be involved in education, that it was the teachers that have control over the kids as well as the boards, school boards and superintendents. So let's just get into that. Mary.
Sure. Well, actually, I was thrilled to hear him say it because we know they've been thinking it and they've been doing it behind the scenes. And someone said the other day that parents are being pushed out. Parents are not pushed out. They have been left out. Parents haven't known what's been going on. And I think that this is great that it's coming to the light, and people are becoming woke in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, so Bob, Loudoun County is kind of the epicenter of this nationally. It's in northern Virginia County, a liberal-leaning county. I had a sister who lived there for years, and so I'm familiar with it. Tell me what how was that changed the narrative that's out there with regard to parents' involvement in schools, CRT, school boards apparently, allegedly anyway, covering up certain things that take place in their schools?
Loudoun is just outside my district, about 15 minutes outside. It borders my northernmost county, and I was there just this past Saturday, my second visit recently, and I was meeting with a group of individuals who are door knocking and fighting for this election that's taking place on Tuesday. And I was trying to encourage them in the fight, this issue that's become so important. Our kids' education is one of the critical issues in our country, and it is nice, to Mary's point, when the left accidentally tells the truth, when they accidentally speak about what their real agenda is. For years and decades, as we know, they've gotten elected by lying about who they are and what they stand for and what they would do. But we're seeing on full display in Virginia and throughout the country the true agenda of the left. With rapid pace, it's being enacted. And to have Terry McAuliffe say, hey, parents have no say. Think about it. Education of our kids is one of the few things in life where we are forced to pay for it and then told we have we have no say in what's done. So after he says it and then he doubles down on it, now he's come back and he runs ads and said, hey, my words were taken out of context, because he knows it's a losing issue. And to have, to your point, to have Loudoun County Uprising there, one of the largest counties in Virginia, one of the bluest counties in Virginia, really is sending a message to Democrats on where their policies stand with American people.
Yeah, so Mary, tell us about. So you're from the Midwest, yes. the Illinois, and do you see this something similar? I mean, we see it in Loudoun County because it just really blew up, and I can tell you about Arizona. But tell us about the Midwest, and is that same attitude present in the schools in the Midwest?
It's not so much by the schools, but I have to say that the schools are being mandated, and they are being issued curriculum that doesn't represent the values of the community. These are our community schools. We should be allowed, the schools should be allowed to reflect the values of the people in the community. And I know we've had a situation recently where a teacher is transgendering and now wants elementary kids to refer to her as the opposite sex and use a different name, and it's ridiculous and confusing. But we all know that if she gets fired, she's going to sue and the school district's going to lose. And it intimidates the school. And we need to fight back loud and strong. And I think when parents start saying, we're going to take our children out of school, if you are teaching this, we're taking our children out. But the first thing, there has to be transparency. Parents need to find out what the curriculum's about. And I know for me, years ago, I was in the school and there was an issue with the curriculum. There was several issues. It wasn't with the teachers, but it was with the curriculum. And they said they got free curriculum from the government. So that's how they control the local schools. And so I ended up taking my 7 children out and homeschooling them. And it was and at that time, it wasn't what was in the school, it was what was missing bothered me. So parents should be concerned about what's missing. If they add, all this perverted sex ed an hour a day, and they add CRT, and they add, I don't know, whatever garbage they're teaching our kids, they're taking the basics out of their school day. And I know from teaching in public, private, and homeschooling, there's not enough time in the day to teach all the good things there are to teach our kids and to get them proficient in the basics. So there's 2 problems with this. One is that we don't want it taught, and number 2, they're not teaching what we want our kids to get. China is our enemy. And even they were right back at it when COVID hit. They didn't lock their schools down for a year. And, parents should be in the driver's seat. Our schools are not sitting in ivory towers, untouchable. They are paid for and they are accountable to the parents and to the taxpayers. And we have every right to know what's going on and to demand that they represent our values, or we're taking our kids out. That's the only, I think that. And I've always told people, you might not support you might not want to homeschool, but you should always support it, because as long as they know we have an exit strategy or the opportunity to exit, that is an accountability factor for them. Once that is gone and we can't take our kids out, we've lost our chance for that. But,
So I'm going to unpack a little bit of what you
sorry.
said. No. I mean, because you covered a lot of great areas that I think that I want to delve into. And so I'll go first to you, Bob. Mary touched on something I think is really critical, and that is the centralization of education, even curriculum policy from the federal government. Common Core, for instance, this very top-down educational system that we have, that we didn't even exist prior to 1979 when Jimmy Carter established the first Department of Education, and it grew from a couple dozen employees now to hundreds of billions of dollars.
The size of that building?
Yeah, it's massive. So I guess, how do you deal with it? Because I think we view it as an unconstitutional mandate, because there's nothing in the Constitution that gives Congress or the executive branch the authority to run education. How do you deal with it? For instance, in Virginia, where you have these folks that basically immediately accept and adopt, or apparently do, the federal mandates on education.
Well, we 3 probably would agree that the federal government, as you said, has no role constitutionally in local education. Right. We don't think they ought to have a role in it. I love our friend Thomas Massey's bill that just says, simply, it's one sentence, says the Department of Education shall cease to exist December 31st of 2022. And I've signed on to that bill. You guys probably have as well. However, we live and fight in the world in which we are operating, and the reality is we do have the Department of Education, we do have the federal government involved, and Mary and I wanted to be on the Ed Labor Committee to fight these battles. And I think just a quick, simple answer is that the funds that the federal government, if the federal government is going to provide funding for education, which I'm against, but if they're going to be involved, because as we know, if they are involved, they provide the funding. The old saying, the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules, and that's what the federal government is doing. They put these mandates and these requirements, these regulations that put the fear in local school systems and state school systems of federal funding being pulled. But the funding ought to follow the children, where the children have to sign off on those dollars, going to their public school or going to their home school, the choice that you and your family made, Mary. My family made a choice to sacrifice and invest in Christian education for our children. But the school boards and the communities, as Mary talked about, do not reflect the local community. The school's making the decision. So while we've done well in conservative circles in county boards of supervisors and state delegates and state senators across the country, we've really done poorly for decades on the school systems or the school boards. They don't reflect the community. To paraphrase what William F. Buckley said several decades back, we would be better off having the first 7 parents in line who are ticked off at a school board meeting on the school board than the 7 that have been elected because we were asleep at the switch for all these decades.
So that's a great point. And so, man, I've been taking notes of what you two are saying. It just, I feel like a fount of information is coming. We need to cover a lot of areas. But you mentioned funding. We could talk about that for a second. But I want to talk about the last point you were making, which is this: our institutions have been co-opted by the left. Yeah. And you have everybody from George Soros funding down ballot elections to things like school boards and county attorneys and prosecutors and what have you. Mary, when we look at that, tell us how you think we get back those institutions like the school boards that are so critical because they interact and they provide the instruction for the next generation. Right now they're being instructed that basically every other nation in the world, so whether it's China with slavery and the imposition of millions of Uyghurs in concentration camps, we are being adjudicated to be just like them, or even like Hitler's final solution type people. So my question is, how do we get those institutions back?
Well, I think first parents need to get more involved. I think that even in my own life, there was a transition where I trusted the professionals. And you can't trust people with your children anymore. And this isn't a slam on the teachers, but parents need to go get involved to find out what the curriculum is. And, my sister's a career teacher, and she's seen a big change in education and just the mandates that are coming down on the teachers. And she doesn't agree with the things that they're being forced to do or teach or even the methods they're using. She said to me the other day, she goes, I could teach these kids math if I could back them up 2 years to where they are, because she's a special ed teacher. But she's not allowed to do that because of the mandates. But, this top-down, one-size-fits-all, we're going to assign your curriculum, here's your free curriculum, they're controlling us by that. And we've just got to take back our local schools. We've got to get involved. Regular people need to run for school board. I met a woman from Nashville. She has 5 children. She actually homeschooled her children, but she's a taxpayer. And even me, I homeschooled my children. We were still involved in public school, involved with the teachers and students there. We care about public school. Our kids that are homeschooled are going to live and work alongside the kids that are go to public school. We want our public schools to be excellent. But anyway, this woman, 5 children, she finds out that Tennessee is using an anti-American civics curriculum. And so she rallies her friends, and they go to the school board about it, and the school board promptly ignores the parents. So 4 months later is a school board meeting, and they turned over 6 seats on that school board. Then she went to the state legislature about it, and they got that anti-American civics curriculum replaced with a good civics curriculum. So, the power of one person. So I want to encourage people, regular people, get involved. Go to the school board meetings and run for school board and talk to the teachers. And I tried to have a good relationship with the teachers. I'm not promoting to be ugly or anything like that, but they are accountable to us. This is our most valued treasure as parents, and then even as a nation. Our hope and our future is our children.
Yeah. And I think you're talking about involvement is so important. I'm going to ask both of you this question. And Bob's kind of started with it, and I kind of started with it too when we started talking about Terry McAuliffe and his statement. And Mary, you kind of picked up on it and carried that flag as well. We're talking ultimately about parents' involvement and having choice in education. So you've mentioned homeschooling. I come from a state with very robust parental choice in their education. You've got, I think, almost a quarter of the students are in charter schools now in Arizona, and they're publicly funded charter schools, but they get less money, and they have, ostensibly they're not supposed to have as many mandates, and they can, but you can move your child around. We have open enrollment and what have you. Bob and then Mary, tell us what a robust parental choice in education program does for both the students and the schools.
We have no school choice in Virginia. We're at the bottom of the list on that, opposite of what you have in Arizona. And what the school systems hate, and what the left who runs our school systems say, they hate competition. They hate accountability and transparency. They hate parental engagement. One of the things that the media has been fussing locally in Virginia about was I was at one of our schools and I advocated for, as I've done many times, cameras in the classrooms. You know, we want cameras on our police officers so we can see what happens there. Why would we not want cameras in the classroom so parents could dial in at any time and see what's being taught in the schools? Don't you think it might be a little bit different if they knew that we were watching all of the time? What we tend to want is quick fixes, but this change is hard, and sustained change is hard, and changing something that's been in place for 50, 60 years as we've lost this battle is difficult. What we need are parents, as Mary said, to run for school board. We need parents to pay attention to what their school board is doing. At the school board meetings that I've attended, 8 or 9 school board meetings recently, I'm telling the parents, you'll have change when the school board fears you more than they fear the state and the federal government. Not from a physical violence standpoint. Of course, they're not domestic terrorists, as they've been alleged by our federal government, but they fear you at the ballot box, and they fear that you're paying attention, you're holding them accountable as you demand change, that the school boards reflect the communities which they live with, the curriculum that's taught, with the indoctrination, with how the teachers are taught, the training that the teachers get, how the teachers are hired, and who hires those teachers, and the worldview that teachers bring to the classroom. But change is hard, and it takes a lot of sustained engagement.
Mary, you want to make a comment on that?
Well, I think that the Democrats are going to lose, you know, in a gigantic way in the next election, but there's a segue between the Republicans and the Democrats. 3 issues, in my opinion. It's education. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're rural or urban. You care about your kids. You want them to have a good education. You want to feel safe in your communities, and you want economic opportunities. And I think it's great that this is coming to the forefront. But everybody needs transparency and accountability. We need it as public representatives. I welcome it. I want it. And anybody that is running away from that should be marked. They have a problem. Why do they not want transparency and accountability? And I think it's interesting in Loudoun County that they're saying if parents want to look at the curriculum, they want them to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That is crazy.
That is kind of nuts. Well, we're just about out of time, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us in this brief time period. We could talk for hours on this topic, and I just want to emphasize one of the benefits of what happened during the COVID lockdowns was that parents could actually see what was going on with their kids' education. That's good. The second thing is, I hear, well, you know, you will see mediocrity if you have parental choice in education. You have a lot of options. It's just the opposite. 3 of the top 10 high schools in the country are in Arizona, and those are charter schools. And then the local public schools, they're also they're innovative. We've seen a move to basic education formats in school districts because parents were taking their kids out and put them in basic education, you know, formats in the charters. So you see this competition, adaptation that goes on, and we miss that when parents cannot have choice and they don't have the participatory role that they need to have in education. If we're going to, you know, China it's a Cold War enemy right now, and if we're going to compete with them, we need to make sure our kids get the best education they possibly can, and then they can also fulfill their dreams and their hopes as well. And you know, so thanks Mary Miller from Illinois and Bob Good from Virginia for joining me today, and thank you for joining us together. We'll keep fighting here at the Freedom Caucus to make sure that there's parental choice in education, along with all the other important values that we share together. Thank you.